Hello, I'm Jeff Wozencraft, and today I'll present my qualitative multiple case study, Exploring New Horizons. This research examines how veterans diagnosed with depression perceive changes in their lives after psychedelic-assisted therapy, framed by Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. We'll begin with the problem that grounds this study, followed by the literature review, which highlights what's already known and the gaps that remain. Next, I'll outline the purpose and research questions, and then walk through the theoretical framework that guided the analysis. After that, I'll explain the methodology and the steps for data collection and analysis. The second half of the presentation focuses on results and implications. I'll start with the key findings, connect them back to the literature, and then discuss the implications and recommendations along with the limitations of this study. Finally, I'll share the distribution plan and close with a brief thank you. In short, we'll move from the problem and gaps to how the study was conducted, and then to what I found and why it matters. When we look at the problem, three major issues stand out. First, veterans experience a disproportionately high rate of depression and suicide. Estimates suggest that about 14% of veterans live with depression, and many face treatment-resistant depression that persists despite multiple interventions. Traditional treatments such as SSRIs, CBT, prolonged exposure, and EMDR have certainly helped many, but they often fall short. Many veterans either do not respond adequately or they drop out because the treatments feel ineffective or unsustainable. Lastly, in recent years, psychedelic-assisted therapy has emerged as a promising alternative. Early studies show encouraging results, but veterans' voices remain largely absent from the conversation. We don't yet fully understand their lived experiences, which means a critical perspective is missing from both research and policy. Together, these problems point to a significant gap. Veterans are suffering, traditional solutions are limited, and innovative approaches are unexplored from the perspective of those most affected. This is where my study comes in. In reviewing the literature, three themes emerge. First, the challenges. Veterans face depression at more than twice the civilian rate, and 30 to 50% find little relief from standard treatments. Stigma and cultural barriers also discourage seeking help. Second, emerging evidence. MDMA-assisted therapy has shown remission rates up to 83%, while psilocybin studies report rapid, lasting reductions in depression. These therapies enhance emotional regulation, trauma processing, and quality of life. Third, research gaps. Most studies are small, homogeneous, and short-term. Few center veterans' lived experiences, and even fewer explore changes across broader systems, such as those described by Bronfenbrenner. These gaps underscore the need for this study, which amplifies veterans' voices and examines their experiences more holistically. Building on the literature and the gaps we've discussed, the purpose of this study is to explore veterans' lived experiences with psychedelic-assisted therapy. Specifically, I want to understand how they perceive changes in their identity, their relationships, and their engagement across different systems of their lives. To do this, I frame my research across Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. Research question 1 focuses on their personal environment. Here, I asked, how do veterans with depression describe changes in their personal environments? Things like self-identity, emotional regulation, and close relationships after completing psychedelic-assisted therapy. Next, I look at the broader impact. I asked, how do veterans describe changes in their broader environments, such as family dynamics, community connections, or societal engagement after completing psychedelic-assisted therapy? Together, these two questions allow us to explore both the intimate, the personal dimensions of healing, and the wider ripple effects across relationships, communities, and systems. For this study, I grounded my work in Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. The framework explains human development as being shaped by dynamic interactions between individuals and multiple layers of their environment. As you can see in the model on the left, the microsystem includes close relationships like family, peers, and mentors. The exosystem represents broader influences such as community engagement, health agencies, and political or economic systems, as the microsystem captures the larger cultural values and sources of meaning such as spirituality. This theory has been widely applied in mental health and veteran studies because it helps us move beyond the individual to see how relational, systemic, and cultural factors all shape well-being. The key proponents of this theory include Uri Bronfenbrenner, who first introduced the concept and emphasized the interplay between individuals and nested systems. Bronfenbrenner and Morris in 2006 expanded the model to include developmental processes and contexts. Rosa and Tudge in 2013 continued the expansion, who validated the theory's usefulness for contemporary qualitative research. By using this framework, I was able to map veterans' experiences across different layers of their lives, from their personal to the societal, and better capture the full picture of change following psychedelic-assisted therapy. For this study, I used a qualitative multiple case design with a constructivist interpretivist worldview. The goal was not broad generalization, but a deep understanding of veterans' lived experiences, recognizing that meaning is co-constructed between participant and researcher. Participants were U.S. veterans diagnosed with depression who had completed psychedelic-assisted therapy within the past year, recruited through purposeful, criterion-based sampling to ensure relevance and diversity of perspectives. Data collection included a pre-interview questionnaire, followed by semi-structured interviews for depth and flexibility. I also maintained reflexive journals to monitor positionality and reduce bias. Analysis followed Braun and Clark's 6-phase process, which allowed me to identify themes across cases while preserving individual nuance. Altogether, this approach produced a nuanced, systems-based view of how veterans experience psychedelic-assisted therapy. The data collection and analysis followed structured stages. Recruitment involved purposeful sampling of 4 U.S. veterans that, through networks and referrals, ensuring participants had relevant lived experiences. Interviews were semi-structured, 60 to 90 minutes each, conducted over Zoom, and explored both personal experiences and broader environmental changes. Transcription was done verbatim and checked for accuracy, followed by coding using Bronfenbrenner's framework while allowing new themes to emerge. Finally, a cross-case analysis compared codes within and across case to identify shared themes and unique differences. This process ensured a systematic, rigorous analysis that reflected both theory and participants' voices. When we look at the personal environments of veterans who participate in this study, several key themes emerged. First, emotional regulation and healing. Veterans described a newfound ability to manage triggers and stress. Many spoke of feeling less reactive and more capable of navigating difficult emotions. Second, reconnection with self. Participants reported rediscovering a sense of authenticity, clarity, and hope. For some, this meant reconnecting with aspects of themselves they felt had been lost to depression. Third, relational repair. Many veterans described stronger bonds with their spouses, children, and peers. Communication improved, and relationships that once felt strained or distant began to feel more connected and open. And fourth, reduced isolation. Veterans described a greater willingness to engage in close relationships, breaking away from patterns of withdrawal and disconnection. One participant captured this shift in communication as well, saying, "Communication improved significantly. She just wanted to be involved in my life." These personal level changes highlight the profound impact psychedelic-assisted therapy had on veterans' immediate well-being and relationships. Beyond personal environments, the participants also described meaningful changes in their broader environments. First, community re-engagement. Many participants expressed a renewed motivation to connect with veterans groups and service organizations. After years of withdrawal, they felt drawn back into community life. Second, an emerging service orientation. Veterans described a desire to give back and help others who might be considering psychedelic-assisted therapy. They often spoke about transforming their own healing into service for others. Third, spiritual realignment. Participants reported experiences of deep meaning, existential clarity, and moral repair. For some, this was about reconnecting with faith or spirituality. For others, it was about rediscovering a moral compass and a sense of purpose. Finally, tensions with systems. While personal growth was profound, veterans often found that institutional or cultural systems had not caught up. They felt that their transformation sometimes outpaced the support available from larger organizations or societal structures. One veteran summarized this shift in orientation by saying, "I want to help others now. I now know what value can be." These findings show how impact of psychedelic-assisted therapy extend outward, influencing not only inner lives, but also their roles in communities, systems, and society. This table shows how my findings align with and extend the literature. First, emotional regulation and relational repair. Veterans reported improved communication and family bonds, which aligns with MDMA studies showing reduced fear responses and openness. Second, reconnection with self and spiritual realignment. Participants described rediscovering authenticity and repairing moral injury, mirroring psilocybin trials that emphasize ego dissolution and meaning making. Third, community re-engagement and service orientation. Veterans felt called to peer mentorship and advocacy, expanding on limited research that usually focuses only on symptom reduction. Finally, tensions with external systems. Internal growth often clashed with stagnant institutional or cultural environments, extending the literature by highlighting systematic misalignment rarely captured in clinical trials. Overall, these findings reinforce prior research while pushing the conversation towards societal and systemic dimensions often overlooked. From these findings, several implications emerge. For clinicians and therapists, programs should integrate relational support and emphasize post-session integration. Facilitators also need training to address deeper themes like moral injury and existential concerns, not just symptom reduction. For the VA and Department of Defense, veteran-centered psychedelic programs should be piloted with ethical frameworks. Reducing stigma through education that ties healing to military values is key, along with streamlining policies for research and collaboration. For researchers and program developers, we need more diverse, longitudinal studies that look beyond symptom reduction to systemic ripple effects, family, community, and cultural alignment. Veteran-focused integration models blending medical, psychological, and spiritual dimensions will also be critical. Altogether, the shift is clear. Psychedelic therapy should not be seen as a one-off intervention, but embedded within relational and systemic contexts to sustain transformation. This study does have several limitations. The small purposeful sampling of 4 veterans limits generalizability, and while ethnically diverse, participants were all male with similar service backgrounds. My own positionality as a veteran may have influenced interpretation despite efforts at reflexivity. The qualitative scope means findings reflect lived experiences rather than clinical outcomes, and the data is time-bound, focused on near-term changes. These limitations don't reduce the value of the study, but highlight the need for a larger, more diverse, and longitudinal research. To maximize impact, I've developed a 3-part distribution plan. First, academic dissemination. I'll submit manuscripts to journals like Journal of Veteran Studies and Frontiers in Psychology, and present at conferences including the Psychedelic Therapeutics and Drug Development Conference and AERA. Second, professional and institutional outreach. I'll share findings with VA and DoD stakeholders through policy briefs, present to veteran-focused organizations such as the VFW, and host webinars for clinicians interested in integration. Third, community and practitioner networks. Within Team SAPO, I'll share results with alumni and spouse programs, collaborate with nonprofits or integration models, and create accessible formats like infographics and podcasts for veterans and families. This ensures the findings reach scholars, policymakers, practitioners, and the communities most affected. Here is a list of my references that supported this presentation. And lastly, thank you for your time and attention today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this research and to highlight the voices of the veterans whose experiences are often overlooked. Thank you.